Hey, welcome to episode number 57 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. You know, it's one of the number one questions I get as a financial coach. Brad, how can I get my spouse or partner on board with our finances and improve our communication as it relates to money? And there's good reason for it. Money problems are one of the leading causes of fights, arguments, and even divorce. And today I have Mark Carey joining us. Mark is a licensed professional counselor, and he is here to provide some helpful insight to hopefully get you started with the money conversation in your relationship. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? Welcome to today's show. You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt Free Dad, and we would love to connect with you. So as you guys know, a big part of our show and a big part about why we do what we do is all about stress-free living. And we would also love for you to be able to live some stress-free living within your relationships too. And as I introduced the show today, money and personal finance is a complicated topic when it comes to relationships and marriage. So today I brought on Mark Carey. Mark Carey is a licensed professional counselor, owner and clinician at Kansas City Trauma and Wellness. Mark has a master's degree in counseling psychology and a doctoral degree in clinical psychology. Mark specializes in working with individuals, couples, and families who are experiencing a number of difficulties ranging from serious mental illness to normal difficulties in navigating life events. Mark and his wife went through roots of personal finance, which we talk about a lot on this show, several years ago, and they are working on some financial goals like buying their second home for themselves and their two children. So Mark, what's up, man? Welcome to the show. Glad you're here.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to tackle this complicated topic, man. And I know we've communicated many times in the past. You've done some live meetups inside Roots, and we've talked personally about this topic a lot. And you have gone through Roots. You kind of understand what we're doing from a financial standpoint. So now I want you to give some of your expertise on this whole communication side, because this is where it gets a little out of my lane. I can only help so much, but for you as a professional who's trained to help people with this, I think you're going to be able to provide some great insight here today as we get started. So let me ask you, Mark, because I think it's easy to put ourselves in the corner and think like we're the only ones that are dealing with certain challenges in our life, and I think we can tend to beat ourselves up like there's something wrong with us. So can you tell me, on average, when you're helping couples and people who are married, how often are those people seeking help when it comes to finances and communication when it comes to money?
Well, it's very fascinating. And when people come in, they talk about, the first thing they talk about is they're fighting and where they're not on the same page. And oftentimes it's communication. But when you really dig deeper, they're not connecting on a number of areas. And finances and money and how to manage it and how to make it work for them is really up there. I can't think over the last year or so of a couple coming into my office, and when I ask about it, them going, "Oh no, it's perfect. It's wonderful. We're on the same page. Things are going great." No, there's couples that come in that both are making six figures and they're going, "We can't figure it out. We're struggling." So, in my office, it's 100% of the time. Now my office is different than everyday life. But from my perspective, it's most of the time.
When I first started my coaching business, I really was shocked by how many people came and asked me this question. And when I do in-person classes, and I'm in an audience, and I got an audience there that's mostly comprised of couples and people who are or married, I'll ask them and I'll say, how many of you, before you got married, actually took, say, like a personal finance class or sat down and really had a great conversation about money, where you stood, what your past is, what your future goals are, so on and so forth, right? And hardly anybody raises their hand. And then we look at, the divorce rate. We look at the reasons why people are getting divorced, and money is one of those top reasons. Why do you think more people aren't, because these are known statistics. Like, this isn't like a mystery here. I mean, people know this stuff. Well, a lot of people know it. Why aren't people taking a more proactive approach to this conversation, you think, when they're taking that leap into a serious relationship or even marriage?
Well, I think it starts at the beginning. Oftentimes, maybe our parents don't talk about it enough. We don't see them do it. They do it behind closed doors, that type of thing. And so we're not getting good role models there. The education systems, that has its own agenda. We just don't have enough experience, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then we have the emotional side of things. No one wants to feel these negative feelings, feeling like a failure because they don't have enough money, or some sort of shame, or some other emotional tie to money. There's many different ways. It's a very complex situation.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, because you're talking, when you think of money on the surface level, you think of dollars, cents, math, percentages, right? But it's much more deep-rooted than that. It plays such a significant role in our lives, and there's a lot of positive emotions that go with that, and also a lot of negative emotions that can go with that as well. I did some quick Google searching, and these are just some of the top searches that I found. It says, my spouse won't let me see their bank account. Should I help my spouse financially? Spouse doesn't contribute to the finances. How to get your spouse to stick to a budget, how to stop fighting about money. My spouse is financially irresponsible. My spouse won't stop spending money, right? So can you share in your expertise, where are couples, when they first start seeing you, where are they struggling the most when it comes to this whole subject of money? And where do you see the biggest issues there?
Well, there's a couple things that come to mind when you ask that. One is, is someone using money as a way to cope with their emotions? Then it's really hard to get them on board, because you can't just take a coping mechanism away from someone, because then there's this void. You have to give them something else to replace it with. So I look at that, are we trying to cope with it somehow? Are we managing our emotions through money? As well as there's a number of other things. What will my partner think? We don't have the same goals. Are our dreams the same? How do we reach those dreams? Are we on two different paths? I think when people come to my office, they're just not connecting. They don't have that connection. And sometimes that's because they're on two different paths, and that has to do with money as well as life.
Yeah, I could totally relate to both of those, because in my first marriage, we were on completely two different pages, and it didn't have the same goals and didn't have the same kind of future outlook of where we wanted to go, where we wanted to be as a couple. And we butted heads forever, and especially when it came to the finances, because of course, money's going to help you reach those goals and those dreams. And for us, like, it was just really, really hard to get on the same page. Now, that marriage didn't work out, and we decided to get a divorce. And now I'm newly married, and when I married Sarah, the two of us both had kind of a similar experience in our past relationships. So the two of us, we really made it a priority to really talk about our goals. Like, we wanted to be on the same page. We don't necessarily have to agree completely what each other wants to achieve, but we both are committed to saying, hey, I want to support you in reaching your goal, and you're going to support me. And then we also have these marital goals as well, things that we want to work on together. And I can't tell you how much less stress there is just on this relationship compared to my past relationship, just because we do have that camaraderie almost within our relationship, that we're working on this together. And we're not here to sabotage each other's efforts. I think that, to me, feels really, really good. And as far as from a financial standpoint, it takes away a lot of the financial stress as well.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I really like what you said there, and some of that is, each other is not the problem. If we stop viewing our partner as the problem and start stepping back and looking more objectively, we can look at those goals, and we can have different goals, or we can have similar goals with different paths to get there, as long as we are willing to understand and support each other. Like you said, how I might want to get to financial freedom might be different than someone else, and that individualization is okay. How can we work that together? the other part that I really enjoyed that you said there was you and Sarah have goals together, but you also have goals separately. And I think when power dynamics get shifted in a relationship and one person is, somebody says, hey, my partner is spending all our money, one person's being pulled towards the other person's goals without having their own, and both trying to achieve something. And then they start fighting back,
Yeah.
That's not what I want. And then there's this division.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think I see that a lot, especially when I see people who are really genuinely interested in changing their personal finances. Usually I'll hear that a lot from them when asking me this question, how do I get my spouse or partner on board? And I usually can get this sense that the other person just doesn't really have anything real tangible that they're working towards, no short-term, no real long-term goals. And without those, and we talk about that a lot on the show, without having those, it's really hard to find kind of the energy and putting in the effort to really kind of change financial habits because there's really no why behind it, right? So you don't really necessarily see the value in changing it. And I think that's where a lot of the couples who are wanting to get their spouse on board, I think that's where they are challenged a lot because obviously they love their partner and their partner loves them. They care about them. And I don't think most of the people that I talk to, they're not doing it from a nagging standpoint. They're doing it from, hey, I'm not doing this to punish us or to take things away or to reduce our lifestyle, but this financial stress it's destroying us. It's hard on the relationship. I'm not sleeping, right? It's affecting other areas of my life. It's affecting my job. And I just want to get out of this so we can actually be happier, so we can live a little less with less stress, so we can maybe have a little bit more money and be able to actually enjoy the things, not only me, but also them. And it's just getting them to really kind of understand that. And I think that's where it's hard. So what would you say? Zig Ziglar's got a great quote, and I love it. He says, many marriages would be better if the husband and the wife clearly just understood that they were on the same side, right? Yes. I love that quote. But what would you say to, a couple who is working on this and they're just not getting anywhere? And, they've tried a lot of different things. Is it really a money problem at that point? And then how can this person that's in this relationship be able to say, like, this is kind of a red flag, not in a negative, like we're going to end the relationship, but just a red flag, like this isn't a money problem. This is something other than money, and we've got to address that, right?
Well, if we really break it down, what is a money problem? Well, it's too much or too little. Too little that we're bringing in, or we're just spending too much. And if it's a deficiency problem, we're not making enough. That is truly a money problem. That's where I call a money problem. Anything beyond that is probably more of communication or classified as a different type of problem. When we talk about goals, you're talking about them, we have those goals that we make, but we also have to have objectives. What would it look like, to be financially free? That's a goal. But what that objectively looks like for me is very different than my spouse, than you, than someone else. So we have to break it down to very objective. This is what it looks like for me. And that's how we get people on board sometimes. What does that mean I can do? What does that do for my life? That type of thing. I think understanding the background with money, what's important to people, is it, I have friends that, and there's nothing wrong with this. One wants to have a certain amount, if it's $20,000 in the bank account at all times versus someone else who says, no, I'm okay with much less.
Right.
And that partnership, they have to talk about that and figure that out. And figure out what's appropriate for them.
Yeah, I love that. You're kind of already hitting on these tips, but so for a couple who's, maybe a little challenged when it comes to this money conversation, what are just some quick things, just some maybe beginning steps that you would suggest? And let's just figure that this couple is willing to at least hear each other out, talk through some things together. This isn't one of those things where the other one's just completely shutting down and not willing to talk about it. But let's just say this couple is willing to talk about what are some things that you would kind of give them as, hey, start here if you want to improve this conversation.
Well, I mean, that's as easy as listening to Debt Free Dad, or getting more engaged in money management, getting more information together, breaking down the basic building blocks of budgeting, really understanding what's coming in, what's going out. As well as, like we talked about earlier, goal setting and dreaming together and fantasizing about what they want life to look like, what they want, their existential view of life. And that's just a fancy term to say, what meaning do they take out of life? I'll give you an example. My wife and I, we don't pretend that we're going to be, some famous people and that everyone's going to remember us, but we want our kids to have memories with us. And so a lot of our goals are driven around making memories. And so our financial freedom is the ability to make memories for their kids when we want to, how we want to, and doing activities with them.
Yeah, I love that.
And so that's an existential view of life and creating your own meaning of life and what that looks like. So we're talking about doing the very low, very particular task on a regular basis if it's budgeting, but we're also talking about the high level of dreaming, fantasizing, and going up there too.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of couples, and that's usually kind of the first place that I start with couples who are willing to work together, but just are having a hard time, seeing eye to eye on things, is going back to the feelings part, the emotion part, the goals, the dreams, and I think if you can plant some roots there, you have a lot to start building on now, right? You see, hey, we really want to achieve this, and now I can kind of see that my purchasing habits are preventing us from being able to live this life. People are more willing to change a little bit more habits when they actually have, again, some meaning behind why they want to do this. But like you said, if the partner just kind of feels like they're getting stuff taken away from them for no reason, it's not going to go very well in a lot of cases, right? They're probably...
Yeah, punishment doesn't work. We're trying to reinforce things we want.
Right. Yeah.
So how can we get all of the things is really the goal.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about compromise. How do you coach and help people through compromise when it comes to a relationship? Because I think that's such an important part of this. Like, you're not going to get everything that you want. There is this give and take in a relationship. And what advice would you give to a couple to open themselves up more to that by giving more, you're actually gaining more in the long run?
I look at it from a flexibility standpoint. We all have to be flexible, especially current times. If I can be flexible about one thing, maybe my spouse can be flexible about another, and we can compromise, what does it look like? I mean, that's a lot, very specific to a couple for me. And some couples compromise very equally, and other couples compromise in a way that works for them. Like I'll use this joke about my own life. I grew up in a certain part of the city. My wife grew up in a different part of the city. So of course we compromised and we lived where she grew up. But it works for both of us. The compromise was I was okay with it. What am I willing to compromise? What is my spouse willing to compromise? Those are the easy ones when they're willing. It's when we get stuck in the position of I'm not willing to compromise about this. Well, I'm not willing to compromise about this either. And we got to get creative. We may have to ask for help, get a third party in there, look at it from a different perspective. If we make a list and we say, these are the things we're not willing to compromise about, and we can agree upon, and then the rest we can figure out from there.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that, I think is important too in a relationship is also it's okay to say, these are my non-negotiables. These are the things that I really like to have. And you were kind of alluding to this idea, when you're talking about maybe, one person might want to have, $20,000 in a bank account that makes them feel secure, whereas another person may not, So mm-hmm. I think also establishing what those non-negotiables are, I think is really critical too. Like for instance, if you're someone who likes to take one trip a year, make that a part of your plan. Like my wife loves the Wisconsin State Fair. I am personally not a huge fan. All right. I love the food, but I'm like very cost conscious, right? It is expensive, right? It is really expensive, but I know it's like, nope, it's going on the budget. I don't like it, but hey, it's one of those things. We go and she enjoys it, right? It's just one of those non-negotiables in our marriage. And it's okay to have those. It's okay for each person to have those. And I think where I tend to see some issues is the person who really wants to take control of their finances, get really serious about that. Sometimes they can tighten the grips too much, and all of a sudden those non-negotiables get taken off the table for the other person. They're like, nope, I'm out. And they're like, I'm not doing this anymore, right? So I would say to those people who are listening to this, I said, it's okay to allow your partner to have some of those. Let's talk about putting in the budget. Let's talk about agreeing on an amount that's okay every month that still allows you to reach your goals and your dreams and the things that you want to do. There's nothing wrong with that month to month to get what you want. Yeah,
definitely. And sometimes digging deeper into how come their non-negotiables are important, if someone says, hey, this is non-negotiable because I consider this my health and well-being, well, that's more understandable than, well, how come you want to spend an X amount at this gym every month when this gym is less expensive? Well, because this is what fits for me, and it's part of my health, and it's what I need. Well, when we dig deeper about the non-negotiables, it's more understandable. We can connect with that. If we really ask Sarah, how come the state fair is non-negotiable, and there's probably memories of her, the memories she wants to make with you, the kids, and everything else that is much bigger than just going and spending money at the state fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you started talking a little bit about, reaching out and getting help when we were talking about compromise, and there's this law of familiarity, and the law of familiarity says familiar relationships or anything familiar to you, especially those things like closer relationships, you tend to take those things more for granted. And I see this because when I teach or when I do like a workshop, or if I've got people in Roots or whatever it might be, I'll have couples come to me, and one of the partners will come up to me and say, Brad, I have been telling my partner the same stuff that you just taught for years, maybe in a little different way, but the same stuff. And now all of a sudden they're like, this Brad guy's got it all figured out, man. We're going to do this, right? They're like, what the heck? Like, why would they listen to you, but they're not listening to me? And it all comes down to this law, I think, is this law of familiarity. It's like you're so familiar with that relationship, you tend to just not quite hear it exactly the same as, say, somebody who's a third party, right? And that's why I think it's so important to say, let's get some help. Getting help is okay. Getting that third party, to get those conversations going, I think is great.
And there's some other laws that are probably there, the law of, when somebody in a lab coat shows up, we're more likely to listen to them, or somebody professional. But when we're that close to someone, sometimes we do have a hard time listening. And sometimes we also have a hard time letting our defenses down and not feeling like it's criticism towards us. And that's what happens there. And it's very easy. That happens in my everyday life too, when I'm working with couples at work, and I can say something in just a little bit of a different way. I can restate it, I can rephrase it, and it connects with someone. And is it because I'm some guru? No, it's because I'm not their partner, and that's okay.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, because right before we started recording this podcast, you were saying, like, even if you could get the two people just not to agree with the third party, right? Talk a little bit about that, because that's an interesting take. I loved it.
One of my colleagues talks about it a lot, because he actually, we talk about him, we joke about him. He doesn't like working with couples, but he's really good at working with couples. And his whole goal is for the couple to agree on something. And sometimes that is that the couple agree to dislike him or what he's saying. Right. And that's okay. If I can get you to start agreeing somewhere, that's what it takes. I don't care if you dislike me or what I'm saying. If it can help you, then wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Well, great stuff, Mark. And listen up to everyone who's listening to this, because we see that there's such a need to help couples who are struggling with this topic. Mark and I are going to be launching a brand new workshop called Financial Harmony for Couples, which is going to be helping couples get on the same page with their finances to reduce stress, improve communication, which is a big key to this, and also to help the two of you and your family live a happier and stress-free financial life. This is going to be about a 2 to 3 hour workshop. It's going to be taking place on February 21st. In the first part of the workshop, I'm going to be covering the basics of personal finance. And I've helped people and families save and pay off tens of millions of dollars. And we're going to be helping you and teaching you the basics of what we shared with these individuals about what are the most important things that you need to focus on as a relationship, as a couple, and as a family to be able to improve your financial life. Now, that may not necessarily be debt-free for you, and that's totally okay. But for most of us, when you look at the statistics, 78% of people living paycheck to paycheck, we all have room for improvement. And then Mark's going to take over the second half of the workshop, and he's going to be talking all about discussing strategies to improve communication and conversations that are happening within your relationship. He's also going to be sharing some great tips on how to fight well and how to fight fair, which I think is really going to be interesting. And by participating in this is going to help the two of you get on the same page, making the money conversation easier with less fighting and arguing. Tickets are going to be $17, and you're also going to get lifetime access to all the replays and to the workshop itself. And again, the workshop's going to be called Financial Harmony for Couples. You can get all the details at therealdebtfreedad.com. Just click at the banner at the very top of the page, and that'll give you access to the info page and everything that's going to be included in this workshop. But if this is something that you're struggling with, be sure to check it out. We know that it's going to help you a lot. Anything to add, Mark, before we cut loose today?
No, I hope to see you guys there and talk more about this.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your help. And again, just take some of these simple tips. And I think the key to a lot of what we're talking about too is just being patient. You know, what we tend to do is create habits in our relationship, and like anything, financial habits, eating habits, right? Relationship habits, these things take time to change. But if you're willing to commit to the process a little bit, we're sure that you're going to see progress over time.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's dance!
All right. That sound means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And today we're kicking it off with Brittany Hafferman. She says, I put $80 in my savings and worked on my budget. 2 great wins. Great job.
Lauren Baird, I put $1,000 into savings from my paycheck and have plenty left over till my next paycheck.
Awesome. Great job, Lauren.
Christina Tharp, I saved up and paid cash for laser eye surgery. I have been waiting a few years, and since we did not travel as much as we budgeted for, I got LASIK instead. Now I can cancel my eye insurance, saving me $13 a month.
That's awesome. And paid cash. That's a fantastic win. Great job. Judy Riley, I sold some items that I was no longer using and used that $500 to pay off 2 credit cards on my snowball. Fantastic. She says, working my way up the mountain. Awesome job. Great job.
Tammy Welty, we had 2 major car repairs this week. First one, $1,276. Second one, $2,262. We were able to pay both bills with cash, still put $100 in savings, and paid another $500 extra on credit card debt.
That is huge, and she has come a long way. And to pay cash for that, car repairs are never fun to pay cash for, by the way. Not fun expenses, but to be able to pay cash, that's the silver lining right there. So great job, Tammy.
And Lacey Love, this was a great week. I put $500 in savings, paid off $200 in debt, ate at home 1 whole week. I also finished rereading The Compound Effect and rewatched the first 3 modules of Roots.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our YouTube show. So please give us a like or leave us some honest feedback on this video. And if you want the latest from the show, obviously, be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel. And for the latest resources, or if you want more information on how to kick debt and financial stress, please be sure to check out the links in this video or head over to therealdebtfreedad.com. We'll see you guys on an upcoming show. Take care.